All right, welcome everybody. What's going on? The first edition of the Trust the Mics pod. I already messed up. I got the name of the show wrong. It's Trust the Mics with Mike Gill, MKB. We got Sixers on our mind. We got Sixers coming up. It's a new Sixers show. My man Michael Caskey-Blomain. I'm Mike Gill. We've been talking Sixers for years, and we're excited to get this rocking and rolling on the BFA Sports Channel, all the socials, BFA Live Sports, Mike Gill Show. Trust the Mics. MKB, what's up, my brother?
Mike, we finally got our Sixers pod going, man.
We've been talking about it for years, and it's weird because it feels like a season in which the Sixers are like so off the radar, but with the Phillies loss, the way the Eagles are playing, we felt like maybe this could be the team that saves us, someone that's so off the reservation. We got so many topics we're going to get into. After that Phillies loss, I don't know about you, but I was like, I'm kind of intrigued with this team.
Yeah, I mean, looking to the Sixers for optimism is never a great bet, but I'm right there with you. I think this season is a big potential for the Sixers, and with everything else going on in Philly sports, why not dive in head first?
Let's do it. So like, rate, review, subscribe, do all the things that you know what to do on the podcast. We're going to be bringing it to you on Tuesdays right about this time. We got off to a little late start today because my Canvas skills, like the website was down, so as I was making the logos and everything, I kind of had a crash, but here we go. Let's start off blue and white the other day. A Joel Embiid was on the court dunking. What do we make of that? Like, if he's playing in a blue and white game, should we think that he is ready to go for October 22nd?
That was my first thought, Mike. I mean, Sixers have been really, under wraps with his progress. He spoke to us at Media Day a few weeks back, and obviously, he was optimistic about his progress and where he was, especially compared to this time last year, how he felt, how he thought he was going to be able to make it through the season. But he stopped short of providing us with any sort of timetable or any sort of guarantee that he was going to be ready to go, at the start of the regular season next week. I think seeing him in that blue-white scrimmage, though, the way he looked physically, the fact that he was able to get out there, play 5-on-5 in front of the fans, for me, my mind immediately went to, does this mean he's going to be ready to start the regular season for the Sixers? It's looking that way. Still nothing official from the team. But what were your thoughts about seeing him out there, Mike?
I was pretty shocked, to be honest with you. The fact that he's out there dunking and the fact that he was playing, getting up and down. Now, I don't know what the rigors, like, was it a full 5-on-5 up and down scrimmage? Yeah. They didn't really give us a lot of information. They just kind of showed the video. And I'm thinking, like, if he's out there dunking in a 5-on-5 game in front of fans, like, that kind of tells me, like, they don't normally do that, right? They're like overly cautious. He doesn't play in that type of game if they think there's a major problem. So my initial thought was your initial thought was, Joel Embiid going to play? Now, I think in the back of my mind, I'm hopeful that he was going to play anyway, but there are questions that have to linger. Now, Paul George did not play in that game. So if Embiid plays and PG doesn't, I'm thinking to myself, Joel's got to be ready, right? And Derek Bodner posted a picture of Joel the other day, and it was like a kind of like a background removed picture, and he just kind of, I didn't recognize him.
Yeah.
I literally thought it was Paul George for a second. His face was so thinned out. Awesome sign there. I guess it's got me somewhat hopeful that he's going to play on next Wednesday night, week from tomorrow.
In Boston, next Wednesday night. I'm with you, Mike. I don't see a scenario where the Sixers roll him out for the blue-white scrimmage in Delaware in front of the, all the Sixers fans, unless they were planning to play him, to start the regular season. And with Paul George, I would be surprised if the opposite almost. I would be surprised if he was ready at the start of the regular season. He also, went through the same knee surgery, knee scope that Joel went over the offseason. When he spoke to us at Media Day a couple weeks ago, he was also optimistic, but he said that, he was not going to be a full participant early in training camp. I think he's still kind of ramping back up into that full 5-on-5 contact. So I think it probably won't be too long till he's back out on the court with the team, but it does not look like he'll be out there for opening night in Boston next week.
So this is a tough question to answer then. We're going to start off with topic one is Sixer starters. I think if everyone's healthy, it's still a tough question, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of options for Nick this year.
Yeah, so obviously Joel and Paul and Maxey, but who are the other two if everybody's healthy? Who do you got?
I think VJ is going to be out there, Mike. I think that VJ Edgecombe, the way that Nick Nurse has talked about him, his development this offseason, like just organizational, internal optimism about him, I think they're going to do the backcourt with VJ and Maxey to start things off. I think to me that last spot is the main question. It's probably going to be Quentin Grimes. I think maybe there's an argument to be made about Kelly Oubre. But my guess is if we're talking full health for this team, whenever that may be, I think we're going to see Maxey. I think we're going to see VJ. I think we're going to see Grimes. I think we're going to see Paul George. And I think we're going to see Joel Embiid.
Say that one more time. VJ?
Maxey, VJ, Grimes, George, and Joel.
Okay, so that leaves them kind of small, kind of more of a three-guard set.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like, the Grimes thing's interesting. What'd you think of the deal, by the way? Everybody's kind of stuck in the middle here.
Yeah, I didn't love it for either side. I think that there could have been a better, ultimate, especially it's stretched so long over the course of the summer to kind of just come and fizzle out with a one-year qualifying offer. I don't hate it for the Sixers because I'm not as high on Quentin Grimes, I think, as some people in the fan base. I like him. I think he's a fine player. I think a bigger mistake would have been giving him a 3 or 4 year deal that he was looking for in the 20 million plus range. I think that would be way too big of a commitment. It's unfortunate this year that he doesn't have, they can't trade him. He's on the 1 year deal. There's probably no long-term future, but you get him for this year. You don't really even know what this future of this Sixers team is going to be beyond this season. So I really don't hate not making a long-term commitment to a guy that might not fit what it's looking like in the future. But I do think they could have came to some agreement on like a 2 year deal with a player option or something along those lines that would have worked out a little bit better for, both sides. But to me, at the end of the day, this Sixers team is not going to be like make or break on Quentin Grimes' presence out there. So it was a little bit less important to me, as I think, compared to some other people.
Well, I felt like he was asking a contract based on his time with the Sixers and not his entire body of work.
Yeah,
it was like, 100%. Come on, dude. You played 30 games here, not even, and you're asking to be paid based on the 30 games, not the other 150 that you played where you were kind of like a mid-tier guy. You came here and showed, but now you got to prove that you deserve that. So I thought both sides were in a terrible situation. Now the Sixers go out and get him. That's a win for them to get him, but the fact that they have to do what they did to bring him back makes it a little murky. Now, are they going to try to justify it by starting him? You have him in your starting lineup. Like, I'm interested to see if McCain is healthy. Can you play a Maxey McCain backcourt together to start, or do you bring McCain off the bench? And then what does that do for VJ? And then you put Grimes and VJ in the starting lineup with McCain, I guess, coming off the bench in that role. They played the Bona Embiid lineup yesterday, or whatever, blue and white together. I'm intrigued by that. Big Bona fan there.
Yeah.
But I would be interested to see if the Sixers end up using kind of one of those like unheralded signings that they made in the offseason to get a guy who's less interested in scoring and more interested in defense, like to start the game and then kind of have a bunch of guys, is at Watford, who's the other option there would be the kid from St. Joe's. Who did they sign? I'm blanking on his name right now. But one of these guys that maybe Justin Edwards, a guy who doesn't have to score as much, and then you bring more scoring off the bench, and then they're talking about this offense with all this passing and all this movement. You got Maxey, George, Embiid, Grimes, and VJ. That was your starting five, and if you substitute and put Oubre in there, gives them a little bit more size. I don't know. It's the whole thing is they have so many options here. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't even know how to make that because it feels like you got a duplicitous type of players. But that's what Indiana excelled with last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daryl Morey obviously emphasized that, he wanted this team to be quicker, younger, a little bit more explosive, more athletic compared to what we saw out on the floor last year. And I think putting VJ in that starting lineup really does that. Nick Nurse, talking to media in practice over the past few days, like past week or so, has mentioned that he's certainly not, against using a multiple three, potentially even like a 4-guard lineup, kind of playing small ball. And if you go look up and down the Sixers roster, I think we're going to see more of that than not, just based off. There's not a lot of depth in that front court. Like you said, Mike, like Bona, I think is going to play a huge role for the Sixers this season. I think you can pencil him into that backup center spot right behind Joel. I think he's leapfrogged, Andre Drummond for that role. I think Drummond will be the third center. And Watford's a guy I think we'll see.
What do you think of Drummond shooting the three? Intrigued or nah?
Not really. I mean, it's entertaining, and I think not to mock him, it's good in today's NBA that big guys learn to space the floor. I don't know how many situations that in actual gameplay that you'll want Andre Drummond shooting threes and spacing the floor for you, but it can't hurt to increase the skill set. But he just doesn't have obviously he's older in the league too. Doesn't have the upside, the athleticism, like the rim running ability.
Could he end up being like a Robin Lopez who just reincarnates his whole career, or one of them guys from Boston who just never hits a three all season, then plays the Sixers in the playoffs and makes every single one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's in play there for him. In order to see the floor, I think you have to expand your game, and that's definitely what he's trying to do with that. We'll see how much time he gets, but I just think Bona brings them, a higher upside in that backup center role. If Paul George is injured to start the season, which is how it's looking, maybe we see some Watford in that starting five. Maybe he pencils in as that power forward next to Joel with, a Maxey and Edgecombe and Grimes backcourt.
Dominic Barlow was the guy I blanked on, by the way.
Playing really well in preseason so far. I think turning some heads.
And he's like a 6'9" kind of guy who doesn't have to score, maybe just does the little things. Like the Sixers have lacked the guy to do the little things, it feels like, forever. And maybe, I don't think he ends up starting, but like somebody like that you don't need offense from with the starting unit, and then you kind of have this group of guys that comes in and gives you energy and scoring off the bench kind of in that second unit.
Yeah, I mean that's what they need because they have a lot of veterans on that bench that how many minutes is Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, like these guys, you have to assume they're not going to see a lot of playing time, and behind them it is a lot of these younger guys. So I think we'll see some new faces stepping up for the Sixers this season for sure.
All right, who do you guys think will be in the starting five? It could change drastically. I'm a big fan of McCain and what he brings, but the size of him and Maxey together, that certainly is something that we need to, keep an eye on. But Grimes, VJ, Maxey, those three guys, McCain, all playing next to Maxey, that'll be very interesting. More athletic, more speed, more explosion, more scoring than they've had, in the past, especially playing guys like Kyle Lowry in the backcourt, Eric Gordon last year. Didn't have athleticism, didn't have the speed that you have now.
And remember, the Sixers led the league by far in different starting lineup variations last season. Obviously, a lot of that was due to injury, but there's no guarantee that it's not going to be a similar situation. You hope there's a little more consistency this year, obviously, than what we dealt with last year. But Joel's going to miss some games. Paul George is going to miss some games. Obviously, McCain's going to miss some games at the beginning of the year. So I think we will have to see Nick Nurse doing some juggling with this lineup more bullish. I'm
bullish on the over-under. I'll throw your way. Embiid, 55, over-under.
My gut initial thought is under, Mike. 55. That's a tough number. I could see 50 if things go well. I do think they're going to rest him a lot, even if he's healthy. The goal is to get him through healthy to the playoffs, Mike. And we've talked about this endlessly for years. They keep falling short in that regard. That's the main priority. I think they feel pretty good with Bona and Drummond as these guys as backups. Back-to-backs is going to be off the table pretty much. And I think the Sixers play 15 or 16. I think they lead the league actually in back-to-backs this season. I'd have to double check.
Yep, I think you're right.
That's 15 right off the gate that you're taking it down to mid-60s there. Some other games are going to be missed, so I would probably go under 55, but close, like 52, 53 maybe. That's my first thought. What about you?
I'm that number right there. I'm kind of going cautiously over, all right? Okay. I'm going cautiously over. I got good vibes about Embiid. I think they did a good job last year of just shutting him down and thinking, like, this season's over. Let's just figure it out and move on. I think they've done a much better job this offseason of, like, you know what? We're not going to give you, like, ridiculous amount of updates and it's just almost like out of sight, out of mind for him. I feel like I equate this to – like a wrestling character that just needs to get off TV for a while. And then when you bring him back, the crowd goes crazy for the guy. Because
Roman Reigns.
I think that Embiid still has MVP-level seasons in him. He's not an old guy yet, but he's on the precipice. He's like Kyle Schwarber. He's right there. He could still give you a 56 home run season, but for how many more years? I think he's got one or two more of these big Embiid seasons in him, but they got to manage him right. So 55, with all the back-to-backs, that would put him right around that number, and that means that if you get 55, what can I get from Paul George? I'm probably less bullish on George. His whole situation seems to be a mess, although he had some freak injuries last year. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think once he gets straight from the knee and gets back on track, I do think that we'll see a better and more consistent Paul George out there. And to piggyback off what you said about Joel, we should see a motivated Joel Embiid. I think, this is a guy couple years removed from winning the MVP, a couple years removed from being an MVP favorite and dropping 70 in a game before he got injured. And over the past 15, 18 months, he's almost been, I don't want to say written off, but the way that the league has talked about him, he's dropped precipitously in player rankings. He's dropped completely out of MVP discussions. There's questions about, if he can even be back out there. I think knowing Joel and the type of player he is and his mindset, he's going to want to come out and prove to people and show people hey, I'm still an MVP caliber player. There's still a lot of gas left in this tank, and I can still lead the Sixers team to, contender status.
All right, let's get into role players' roles, because you got a whole new group of guys this year. Last year they went with old guys, veteran guys, trying to have the veteran group of the guys coming off the bench. And in the event that someone got hurt, you had a guy who's kind of been through the wars before. That backfired because everybody got hurt. So then you just had a bunch of old guys. So who are the group of role players that you are intrigued by?
This, to me, is pretty fascinating with this lineup, Mike, because I really don't know how this bench is going to look. We were just talking about that starting five and how it's going to shake out. The bench, to me, is really interesting, especially early in the season, because McCain's not going to be there. Does that mean Kyle Lowry is going to be your primary backup point guard? You obviously have Oubre and Eric Gordon, who came back. And then you have a couple of the younger guys like Barlow, like you mentioned, Broom that they drafted, obviously, in the second round, Watford, Justin Edwards, Bona. I think that the front court, in terms of the depth, is actually a little bit more solid than the back court at this point, because you got Bona, you got Drummond, you got Broom, you got Watford. Pretty decent backups for the power forward and center spot. But in terms of the backcourt for the, the guards, it's, do you start Lowry? Does he have anything left to give? Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon. I'm fascinated to see where Nick Nurse turns with some of these backup rotations.
Yeah, you mentioned. So let's start with this one. The backup center spot has been an albatross. They brought Drummond in last year, then he ended up getting hurt. And because he ended up getting hurt, Bona got a lot of playing time. Do we think Bona is a legit backup five that they finally have, that Embiid can go out for 18 to 20-some minutes a night?
I think so, Mike. I mean, obviously we need to see more. He played in, limited stretches as a rookie, a little bit more toward the back end of the season. But summer league and into preseason play and training camp so far, it's all been positive about Bona. He obviously has been starting over Drummond in the preseason games, getting that, kind of that nod over him there. The athleticism, the finishing at the rim running, the rim protection, it's all the stuff that the Sixers have been looking for in a backup big man. I think he has all the makings to be not necessarily a star player, but a guy that can star in his role as the backup guy, start some games when they need him to, play 15 to 20 minutes a game, like you said, if Joel's sitting. And then you have Drummond as the third guy, old, reliable, not going to give you too much anymore, but you know what you're going to get from him. I think you could do worse as a third string center than Drummond. But I think all signs for Bona is that he's going to play a very big role for that Sixers team this season.
Yeah, he intrigues me there. Justin Edwards, I thought, gave him good minutes last year, kind of a diamond in the rough that they found. Interested, Johnny Broom, an active player. What kind of role does he get, especially if they play Bona and Embiid together? Can Broom be the guy that kind of takes those Bona? If Bona and Embiid end up starting games together, would Broom be the guy that kind of jumps in for Bona? That would be interesting there. I think you also want to see, what McCain ends up doing. What role does he have? Does McCain come in and run the second offense, or is he more of the off guard, when Maxey goes in? And how many minutes are there for those guys, right? Can you play McCain, VJ, Grimes, Matt? You can't play them all together. So how are you going to get sufficient minutes to maximize all those guys? That's going to be a really interesting one, because Nick Nurse wants to move the ball and have everybody going. Could he go four guards at times with a guy, I don't know, do you throw Bona out there with a bunch of guys and have him rim protect, run up and down, and just get him jumping and hooping and sitting on the dunker spot and alley-ooping with 4 guard. I mean, that could be a fun group with VJ, Maxey, Grimes, McCain, and Bona.
Yeah, and Bona's perfect for that role, Mike, because he can get up and down the floor like that. You know, he can keep pace with those guys, finish at the rim, jog back to protect the rim on the other side, and you know he can get up and down. So that's a perfect fit. And I do think, like I said a little earlier, I think by default we're going to have to see some of those 3-4 guard lineups because that's just the way this team is constructed. They're really deep in that backcourt. They have 4 legitimate rotation guys in the guards. And with McCain, it's tough because I just think that injury is a little bit unfortunate. Obviously, it sets him back a little bit. You miss training camp, you miss preseason, you miss the start of the season. And that's the time where with this group specifically, pieces would kind of be fitting together. Nick Nurse would be feeling out, how these guys fit together. And McCain, unfortunately, is on the sideline again, watching this kind of develop. So I think by default, because of that, he's going to start the season on the bench whenever he is able to come back. His role will probably be pretty fluid, pretty dynamic, and they'll see, where he fits in best. And I'm curious, like you said, Mike, is he going to be, do they think he's a guy that can be the primary ball handler of that second group? He didn't do too much of that last year as a rookie. It was more off-ball stuff. He did obviously play some on-ball, but a lot of catch and shoot, a lot of spot up, a lot of playing off-ball we saw from him in the limited stretch that we saw from him last year. So, what do you envision McCain's role being once he's healthy, obviously?
Tough one because I agree with what you said. Him not being in training camp and not getting the minutes and the reps, he didn't play with Embiid much last year, so they don't have any kind of chemistry together. So I would imagine that you want him to be more of a catch and shoot guy that could put the ball one dribble. I mean, he was awesome as a spark last year, but I don't know if you could play him and Maxey a whole heck of a lot defensively together. So you would almost have to then wonder, do you bring him in to run the second unit and then have maybe him and Grimes play together, although they didn't get to play together at all last year because at least Grimes gives you some size in the backcourt. You have McCain run it, Grimes off the ball. I love McCain, but I just feel like he is like the odd – I don't want to say the odd man out. That's not fair.
That's how it feels. That is how it feels, Mike.
Right, because he's kind of stuck in no man's land because of not having the training camp. Because you could two-man game him with Embiid, and he would be terrific, I think. Yeah. But are you going to two-man game him and McCain to take the ball away from Maxey? Are you going to – because I don't know how much offense they're expecting from Edgecombe. That's another – mystery in this. Do they look at Edgecombe as a guy with the ability to put the ball on the floor, get to the rack? Can he kick out? Is he a guy that can get to the basket? Does he have that in his game where he can get to the rim and then kick it out? They're talking about we don't want guys standing in the corner. So what kind of offensive game does VJ have? Because he's not a spot-up shooter. That would be more McCain's role. That's why this is so fluid and so fascinating, how Nick is going to rotate those guys in the backcourt and get them shots in the spots that they feel most comfortable in.
Yeah, and it's a unique situation, too, because you have a team that was constructed to be a contender. I mean, obviously that didn't pan out last year, but the way that roster was set up with George and Embiid and all those guys, and now, you bring that team back largely, and you're fitting in a top 3 pick who, like you said, the case with any top 3 pick, you don't really know exactly how they're going to pan out, how productive they're going to be, especially early on. So you don't really know exactly what you're going to get from VJ. In preseason so far, I've seen a guy that can, basically get to the rim at will. I think there needs to be some work on the finishing. Obviously, the playmaking is still a work in progress, but there's clear flashes. If he was a guy that was on a team like the Hornets or the Wizards, he'd be playing, 30 minutes a game with the ball in his hand and really getting the opportunity to kind of just grow into the role in the NBA. Is he going to be afforded that opportunity on a Sixers team where, there's other good guards and the expectations are to come in and contend immediately? So that's another thing that Nick Nurse is going to kind of have to balance, like the development of Edgecombe combined with the expectations of this Sixers team and find a way to kind of, blend those two parts together.
All right, let's final couple things here. Concerns you have other than health? Because we could say, well, can Embiid be healthy? Is George going to be healthy? What are some of the concerns you have other than that?
A couple things have stuck out to me during watching these preseason games, Mike. Obviously, they had the 2 games in Abu Dhabi against the Knicks. They played in against Orlando at home a few nights ago. The depth, I mean, obviously with preseason, it's been a little tough to tell, too, because, George isn't out there. Joel's not out there. So everything with the Sixers team is an asterisk talking about that. But the depth of the bench unit, like we were kind of just talking about, if with McCain's out, there's not a lot of backup guard situation like Lowry. I think a lot of people are questioning if he should even be, taking up a roster spot. Same with Eric Gordon. How is that? And do they have enough floor spacing? Like the NBA is such a 3-point league, and a lot of the players on the Sixers, they can knock down shots, but they're not necessarily guys that you would consider floor spacers. You need, a Kelly Oubre, an Edgecombe, Grimes, Maxey. Like these are guys that are capable of knocking down shots, but they're not guys that you would necessarily just straight up consider as floor spacers and knockdown shooters. So I think that's an area that the Sixers might struggle a little bit, especially with Joel out there drawing attention. Obviously, he likes to kick it out. Do they have the personnel to kind of surround him with that? And the depth, like, do they have enough pieces to keep the thing going when their top guys are out? And I think we'll find out, in pretty short order once the season starts, how this team is going to be, looking.
I would say for me, that's on the list, but top on my list is where are you getting rebounds? This team's small, man.
Yeah.
And where, one of the problems they've had over the years is rebounding and the physicality. Once they lost Ben, they really didn't have that guy to rebound from the second level in terms of long rebounds. Ben would get so many rebounds in the middle of the paint or that jetted out to the elbow, and then he would catch, turn, and start your break. You don't have that. You don't even need a 6'10 guard, but you don't have a big guard that can rebound. Kyle Lowry a little bit was able to do it, but he's an older guy. Like he's not consistently out there rebounding and then running the break. So where's your dirty guys? Where's your grinders that are going to get some rebounds and clear the glass and start your break? That's where I feel like it's so underrated about what they missed from Ben Simmons, for the people who forgot who he is. He got those rebounds and started your break, and you got so many easy baskets because of him. And those easy baskets have become so much harder to come by because you don't have that rebounding guard. And I know Ben had so many problems, but they've never replaced what really made them tough is they were such a good team in the open floor because they got long rebounds and started breaks. Where are they getting that from now? Who's going to rebound? Because let's be honest, Joel is not a great rebounder for a 7'2" man. He's not a physical rebounder who's just clearing glass and saying get out of the way and then starting breaks. I feel like they have never replaced what their offense was good at when they lost Ben. Now, you can't have Ben running with a guy like Joel anymore. I mean, he just can't keep up, and that kind of hurts the team. But rebounding would be a big concern for me with especially the group of guards that they have.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. That was absolutely on my list. And Ben Simmons, by the way, still available as a free agent. Should Daryl Morey give him a call?
I was always a Ben fan. I know he had – I kind of came to accept what he was as opposed to what he never became. I think he's even worse now than he was when he was here, and no one has been able to get anything from him. I mean, I don't know if he's healthy.
Shell of himself.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the health just absolutely crippled him, and it's a shame. I know he never shot, and that frustrated people. He was still, for a guy who everyone knew wasn't shooting, was still a 3-time all-NBA level player. Great defensive player. And the thing that what I just talked about, the rebounding, that when he was at his best, he rebounded, started the break, and as guys have said, Danny Green said, I never had a better time than playing with Ben Simmons because I got open threes all the time. So, yeah, Ben frustrates you, and he frustrates his teammates, I'm sure, but the guys who made out from playing with Ben really made out from playing with Ben. And I feel like this team probably could use a Ben. Now, would I sign him? Probably not.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And to that point, the playmaking that he brought too, I would argue, kind of touched on one of my concerns. This Sixers team doesn't have like a natural playmaker to me. Maxey has taken strides in that area, but watching him play, he gives you thought flashbacks to Iverson, where he's almost kind of a 2-guard playing, cosplaying as a point guard, a small guy. Edgecombe, there's been a lot of talk about converting him into a lead guard, a playmaker type, but that's also not necessarily his natural style of play. I guess McCain is the closest from what we've seen, but he's also a guy that at Duke and in what we saw last year is a shoot first, a scoring type guy. So I do worry a little bit about the playmaking for the Sixers team. Like when you had James Harden, you had Ben Simmons. These are guys that are natural playmakers that just create opportunities, easy opportunities for other guys. And I just don't see that. Like Joel, obviously, he's never been a great playmaker. He's improved drastically at facing doubles and, making plays for others. But there's no one on this team that you look at up and down the roster and like, wow, this guy's going to give you 10 assists a night. We just don't have that. So I think, the rebounding and the playmaking to me are two major concerns for sure.
They do not have a true point guard on this team. You're absolutely right about that. Not one guy who profiles as, Lowry, obviously, but how many minutes are you asking Kyle Lowry to play this year? Hopefully, he's in the 5 to 8, if that range.
And any more than that's a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. Hot seats. We putting Nick Nurse, Daryl Morey on the proverbial hot seat.
Yeah, Mike, unequivocally, I think both of those guys are on the hot seat. I think there was internal and obviously external talk on, social media and amongst fans last year about the way things ended, if that was going to be it for those two guys. I believe there was even some reporting toward the end of the last season after they decided not to move on that, basically this year coming up was going to be a make or break season for both of those guys. Third year, Nick Nurse, Doc Rivers obviously got 3 years with the Sixers. 3 years, they got to the conference semis. Each of those 3 years with Doc Rivers, it wasn't good enough. So far, Nick Nurse, we have a first-round playoff exit. We have him missing the playoffs. This is the third year. Morey's been here for a while. He's gotten to bring in guys, trade guys, do a lot of what he does to the roster. It hasn't got us past that second round yet. So I think the way I look at it is, both of these guys are on the hot seat to an extent. I'm just, probably sure that you would agree with that. My question to you is like, what's the barometer that you think would be a safety mark for these guys? Like, I don't think it's win the NBA championship or bust. I think those expectations have been kind of tampered down over the past year or two. Certainly a playoff appearance, at least, probably a playoff series win. But what do you think the Sixers team needs to do to keep those guys in their jobs moving forward?
It's a tough question, man, because we always say you got to get out of the second round. Would this team's expectations be to get out of the second round? I mean, is that what we're entering this season? If healthy, everybody's healthy, and you're rocking and rolling. Like the expectations last year were, this team's good. This is a good enough team to get. And now it's a very similar team. Should our expectations be less?
It certainly sounds like the team's expectations are less, Mike. I mean, last year at media day before the season, Daryl Morey was talking about the championship expectations, championship window. There was none of that talk this year at media day. There was no guarantees.
Maybe they like that. Maybe they finally like that.
Yeah, but I think they're aware that, like you said, it used to be that you have to get over that second round hump, at least get us back to the conference finals. I don't know if that's still the barometer this year with the way things have kind of fallen for this team over the past 2 seasons. I agree that the way that, especially with the East, and we've touched on this, I'm sure we'll touch on it in episodes moving forward. The East is pretty open this year, Mike. Like there's not a lot of, the Knicks are going to be there. The Cavs are going to be there. But some of these injuries to guys like obviously Tatum, Halliburton, some of these other, the Bucks are a completely different team. They don't look like they're going to be great. So there's certainly an open room for the Sixers to climb right back into that contender conversation and make some real noise if they can be healthy. So, the path is there.
They have the 7th longest odds for the number 1 seed. They are plus 3,000 to be the number 1 seed. So they obviously don't look to be the best team. For the number 2 seed, they are plus 1,800. For the number 3 seed, they are plus 1,200. For the number 4 seed, plus 950. For the 5 seed, they are plus 850. Do we think they're a top 5 seed this year?
I think it's possible. I was just going to say that 4 plus 950, the 5 plus 850, if I was a betting man, those numbers don't sound terrible to me. Some things have to break right for this team, mainly with health. But if you can get, like you said, 50 games out of Joel Embiid, 50 games out of Paul George, and health from the other guys, there's no reason that this team can't be in that 4 or 5 conversation, if not higher. I certainly want to temper things. I think there's a lot of moving parts with this team that we have to wait to kind of see how they look before we make any sweeping, predictions about them. But on paper, the roster is talented enough that it certainly should be in that top 4 or 5, conversation for sure.
Yeah, if everything goes right, full health. Last year everything went wrong, not healthy. Right. If it's the opposite this year and you get full health, Joel doesn't play the back-to-backs, but Paul plays, 55, 60 games, and he's Paul George giving you 18. Now, that's another thing. If you have Maxey, McCain, Grimes, Embiid, VJ, What's your expectations for Paul in terms of an offensive player?
The numbers are going to be down, I think, obviously, Mike, from what we've seen, in the prime Clippers, Thunder, Pacers, Paul George. I think he's going to be a guy. I mean, that's clearly like a second, third option type role. We saw him score about 16 a game last year on 43% shooting. I honestly think that those numbers will probably stay pretty consistent. I don't see him being a 20-point guy probably again in his career. I think 16, 17, 18, some, 4 or 5 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists. I think that's what we can expect, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like you said, there's a lot of other guys to feed. The ball has to move around. It's not going to be an offense where, we're expecting Paul George to go ISO and get up 20 shots a game. That's just not the way this team's constructed. It's not the way he's built at this point in his career. So I think, consistency and health compared to last year would be better. But the numbers, the raw numbers, I think we'll see pretty similar to what we saw from him last season.
All right. Trust the mics. We're going to do it each week. A lot of Sixers talk this year. Looking forward to it. Make sure you subscribe, like the BFA live stream on YouTube, at Mike Gill Show, at Trust the Mics on the X platform. Good crowd already for episode 1. I see it keeps growing and growing and growing throughout this show today. So if you're watching, hit the repost button. If you are on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. You looking forward to hip-hop returning?
Mike, I'll give the Sixers credit for finally just throwing a bone to fans. They're bringing the throwback jerseys. They're bringing hip-hop back. We don't know what the product's going to look like, but it seems like they're finally at least listening and placating the fans, which is nice. So I'll give them props for that.
Yeah, hip-hop's going to be back. They announced today a reunion game for the 0-1 Sixers, it looks like. So
yeah,
you're going to get that.
January, I believe, against the Pelicans. They 31st. Yeah, January 31st against the Pelicans, a 25th reunion game.
Yeah, so going to be interesting to see who shows up and how they kind of handle this whole season. It's 25 years, of course, of the there you go. There's hip-hop. He's coming back this year. Then the guy who did him, wore the costume, then he tear his ACL one time or something. The same guy.
I believe so.
The same guy who wore the costume is going to wear it for, this season whenever they use him. So
I mean, good for him, man. If he's going to be flying, jumping off the trampoline and stuff, hopefully that is he can keep himself together. That's a young man's game.
I had little expectations for the year, and then all of a sudden I kind of got the itch of you know what? I'm a little intrigued. Like Joel, at the end of last year when they didn't make the playoffs, it was, listen, there's not much more Joel can do to be a great basketball player. His apex, I don't know if he's hit it, but he's still awesome as a player. His problem isn't the player, Joel Embiid. It's the health, and then it's what kind of shape are you in. So for me, I don't know how much better he could be as, now he could probably be a little bit better passer or whatever, but I'm talking about as a scoring, offensive, defensive force. He still can hit that elbow jumper. He still nails you on the baseline. He still can be Joel Embiid, but you can't do it as size. And I said, Joel, your only thing you should work on this offseason is getting back to your rookie year size. You need to get back to that guy, and then everything that you already do will only be elevated. And have you seen him in person?
Yeah, yes.
And he physically appears different.
Noticeably different, yes.
Okay. Because I haven't seen him in person. I'm just looking at video and pictures, and from video and pictures, he does look a lot slimmer, but the TV could be deceiving sometimes. You saw him in person.
Yeah, no, it was pretty jarring. The first time I saw him was a media day. Came out in the jersey and noticeably slimmer, noticeably more svelte, really, really noticeable.
Because I feel like we've heard this, he looks better, but a different better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he clearly dedicated himself this offseason, and it's like I was saying, I feel like he's not saying it out loud to media, but I think there's a chip on that guy's shoulder.
I think so.
Come back out and remind everyone who he is. I mean, a couple years ago, like we said, this is the MVP of the league, the most dominant player that I think feels like he's kind of been overlooked or written off almost at this point in his career.
All right, episode 1 in the books, MKB. We'll trust the mics again next week, a Sixers pod. Season starts on the 22nd. We'll have a fresh pod for you before the opener. So make sure you like and subscribe right here on the X platform and on YouTube. All right, man. Well, episode 1 in the books.
Yes,
next
sir.
week, Sixers, Celtics. We'll talk about the East, where the Sixers rank in the East for everybody out there. We'll talk to you guys all next week here on Trust the Mics, the Sixers Pod. Thanks, man.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mike.
We'll see you. All right, there's MKB, and we are out. Like, rate, review, and subscribe. See you, everybody.